if you're I did an awful lot of things that you haven't mentioned because you don't remember them, you see, so I never got branded with
It's just
those.
I hadn't time, dear Roger.
No, but it was in between Ivan the Off, or whatever it was I did.
Roger Moore is still remembered as one of the most elegant and beloved James Bonds in film history.
I make my first contact. It was a young girl. She was alone on a bed, dying.
On screen, he became famous for his humor, composure, and the polished demeanor of a quintessential British gentleman. Behind that familiar smile, though, there were strained relationships that he rarely discussed publicly. It was only in the final years of his life that Moore revealed the names of several colleagues who had irritated him to the point where he had no desire to work with them again. What makes these revelations particularly interesting is that some of those individuals had appeared alongside him in the most famous projects of his career. The answer begins with the person Roger Moore reserved some of his harshest comments for: Hervé Villechaize. Among all the people who frustrated Roger Moore throughout his career, Hervé Villechaize is often mentioned first. The French actor appeared in the James Bond film The Man with the Golden Gun, and quickly became one of the colleagues who left the strongest negative impression on the British star. Roger Moore met Hervé Villechaize during the production of The Man with the Golden Gun in 1974. The film was shot in several locations, including Thailand and the famous Pinewood Studios in England. It was also Roger Moore's second outing as James Bond following the success of Live and Let Die. In the film, Hervé Villechaize played Nick Nack, the loyal assistant of assassin Francisco Scaramanga. Standing at only about 3 feet 10 inches tall, he immediately drew attention from audiences. Nick Nack also became one of the most memorable villain sidekicks in the Bond franchise. The reality behind the scenes was very different from what appeared on screen. According to numerous accounts Roger Moore shared in his memoir and later interviews, working with Hervé Villechaize was far from easy. Tension between the two emerged from the early days of filming. Roger Moore stated that Hervé Villechaize frequently made special demands of the production team. Many of those requests were viewed as unreasonable and added pressure to the filmmaking process. Crew members occasionally had to adjust plans simply to deal with issues involving the actor. In addition to his personal demands, Hervé Villechaize was reportedly a frequent source of difficulties for the organization of the set. This left many people feeling exhausted. For Roger Moore, who was well known for his professionalism and punctuality, such behavior became even harder to tolerate. Even so, work-related issues were not the main reason Roger Moore developed such strong resentment. What bothered him most was Hervé Villechaize's behavior toward women working on the production. It was a subject Moore repeatedly brought up when reflecting on the making of the Bond film. In his memoir, My Word is My Bond, Roger Moore used extremely harsh language to describe his colleague. He referred to Hervé Villechaize as a diseased sex maniac. It remains one of the most severe remarks Moore ever made about anyone throughout his career. According to Roger Moore, Hervé Villechaize repeatedly behaved inappropriately toward female cast members and women working on the set. These incidents created an uncomfortable atmosphere for many people involved in the production. In some cases, others reportedly felt compelled to step in. Roger Moore said he witnessed situations on numerous occasions that left him deeply irritated. To him, respect for colleagues was a fundamental principle in any workplace. For that reason, behavior viewed as harassment or lacking basic decency became impossible for him to accept. Unlike many disputes in the entertainment industry that tend to fade over time, Roger Moore's opinion of Hervé Villechaize barely changed. Long after the film's release, he continued speaking about his colleague in highly negative terms. That alone illustrates how strongly those experiences stayed with him. Among the many behind-the-scenes stories connected to James Bond, Roger Moore rarely criticized people so directly. For that reason, his repeated negative comments about Hervé Villechaize attracted considerable attention from fans. Very few colleagues ever received similar assessments from him. On September 4, 1993, Hervé Villechaize died at the age of 50, after taking his own life at his home. His death saddened many people throughout the entertainment industry. Even after his former colleague had passed away, Roger Moore never altered the opinions he had expressed about him. Tony Curtis. After his deeply tense experiences with Hervé Villechaize, Roger Moore found himself dealing with another difficult relationship during his career. This time, the person who repeatedly drew his criticism was not a supporting actor from a Bond set, but one of Hollywood's biggest stars of the era, Tony Curtis. The two men met while working on the television series The Persuaders, a project producer Lew Grade heavily invested in, with ambitions of reaching the international market. The show quickly became one of the standout productions on British television and turned Roger Moore and Tony Curtis into the leading duo throughout the entire series. By the time production began, Tony Curtis was already a major Hollywood name. He had built a highly successful film career with numerous well-known productions and enjoyed a level of fame far beyond that of Roger Moore at the time. That status also earned Tony Curtis a significantly higher salary than his British co-star. On screen, the two stars created a charismatic and entertaining partnership. Tony Curtis's Danny Wilde and Roger Moore's Brett Sinclair formed a highly appealing investigative duo. The combination of their contrasting styles helped the series attract substantial attention from audiences across many countries. What the public saw, though, did not fully reflect the real-life relationship between the two actors. According to accounts Roger Moore shared repeatedly in later years, working alongside Tony Curtis was not a pleasant experience. Differences in personality and daily habits gradually created distance between them. One of the issues that bothered Roger Moore most was his co-star's work ethic. While Moore consistently tried to maintain a professional image and was willing to remain on set longer when necessary, Tony Curtis was often viewed as far less enthusiastic about spending extra time beyond the planned schedule. According to Roger Moore, many members of the production team noticed that Tony Curtis frequently placed personal comfort above the demands of the production. This made it difficult for the British actor to relate to his colleague. Their differing views on professional responsibility became increasingly apparent as filming continued. Aside from work-related matters, Roger Moore frequently mentioned Tony Curtis's everyday habits. One of his most famous observations concerned what he saw as the Hollywood star's extreme frugality. In his memoir, Roger Moore did not hesitate to describe his co-star as exceptionally cheap. He believed that Tony Curtis constantly looked for ways to minimize personal expenses, even in situations that others found difficult to understand. Stories Roger Moore told about meals, social gatherings, and his co-star's behavior quickly became topics of interest among fans. One memory that was often revisited involved a Christmas dinner hosted by Tony Curtis. According to Roger Moore, the meal was far smaller in scale than the guests had expected. He used that incident as a classic example when discussing what he viewed as his colleague's stingy nature. Financial matters were not the only source of irritation. Roger Moore also referred to several personal habits that annoyed him. Tony Curtis was reportedly prone to leaving his belongings in disarray during production. These seemingly minor issues became a source of negative feelings as the two men worked together over an extended period. Another detail Roger Moore recalled involved Tony Curtis's frequent consumption of garlic. For many people, this would simply be an ordinary habit. In a filming environment where actors regularly perform close-up scenes or speak face-to-face at short distances, it created more than a few inconveniences. Roger Moore's assessment of his famous colleague was further reinforced by comments from producer Lew Grade. Years after the series ended, Lew Grade confirmed that the two leading stars were never truly compatible while working together. His observation supported much of what Roger Moore had previously shared. One particularly notable moment came when Tony Curtis experienced a loss within his family. Roger Moore took the initiative to offer comfort to his former colleague. The gesture demonstrated that even with considerable frustrations between them, he continued to display the courtesy that remained one of his defining traits throughout his life. Tony Curtis passed away on September 29, 2010, at the age of 85. The death of the Hollywood star brought one of the most distinguished film careers of the 20th century to a close. Even so, Roger Moore's remarks about him continue to be revisited whenever fans explore famous behind-the-scenes relationships from the entertainment world. Grace Jones. After his disagreements with Tony Curtis on The Persuaders, Roger Moore found himself involved in another notable behind-the-scenes relationship while making the final Bond film of his career. The person who left such mixed impressions this time was Grace Jones, one of the most distinctive and prominent figures in the international entertainment industry. Grace Jones was born on May 19, 1948 in Jamaica, and became famous as a model, singer, and actress. Before appearing in the James Bond franchise, she had established a unique public image through her bold fashion style, strong personality, and outspoken remarks that frequently attracted media attention. Roger Moore met Grace Jones when they both joined the cast of A View to a Kill. The film was shot across several locations in England, France, and the United States. It marked Roger Moore's 7th appearance as James Bond and also his final performance in the famous film franchise. In the movie, Grace Jones played Mayday, the loyal bodyguard of villain Max Zorin. The character quickly attracted attention because of her distinctive appearance, powerful presence, and impressive action scenes. Many viewers even regard Mayday as one of the most memorable Bond girls of the 1980s. On screen, the pairing of Roger Moore and Grace Jones produced many memorable moments. Off camera, the relationship between the two actors was not always smooth. Differences in personality and daily habits quickly led to a number of clashes during production. According to Roger Moore's recollections, Grace Jones possessed an extremely strong personality and always enjoyed expressing herself. This made her one of the most noticeable figures on the set. For people accustomed to a quiet and disciplined working environment, the artist's style could sometimes be a source of irritation. One of the things Roger Moore frequently mentioned was Grace Jones's habit of playing music at a very high volume. During breaks between scenes, she often blasted disco music and maintained an energetic atmosphere around her. Not everyone found that comfortable. According to the British actor, the loud music was so frequent that it affected the concentration of people working nearby. For Roger Moore, who consistently valued professionalism and order on set, activities like these occasionally became a source of tension. The contrast in personality often made it difficult for the two actors to find common ground. Roger Moore was known for being calm, courteous, and emotionally controlled. Grace Jones, by contrast, built her reputation on rebellion, freedom, and a willingness to challenge conventional norms. One of the incidents most frequently discussed involved Grace Jones's public remarks about Roger Moore. According to reports from the time, she once stated that her boyfriend possessed a look that was better suited to the role of James Bond than the British actor. The comment quickly attracted attention from entertainment media outlets. Although it was viewed as a personal opinion, its content surprised many people. For Roger Moore, it was clearly not an enjoyable remark to hear while the two were working together on a major production. Differences in behavior and various public comments created several periods of tension between the two actors. Roger Moore admitted that he was bothered by some of Grace Jones's actions during filming. All disagreements, though, remained within the boundaries of their professional relationship. In many interviews later in life, Roger Moore continued to speak of Grace Jones as a unique colleague. While he did not hide the irritation he once felt, he also acknowledged that her strong personality was one of the reasons the public remembered her for so many decades. Today, Grace Jones remains one of the most recognizable cultural icons in the entertainment world. She continues to pursue artistic projects and appear at major international events. At the same time, memories from the making of A View to a Kill are still recalled as a memorable chapter in Roger Moore's career. Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers was born on September 8, 1925, and rose to become one of the most influential comedians of the 20th century. With his remarkable ability to transform into different characters and his versatile acting style, he became a familiar face in many famous films and was widely regarded by the public as a rare talent. Roger Moore and Peter Sellers did not share the kind of relationship often seen between colleagues who worked together throughout an entire film or television series. Even so, the two knew each other within the British entertainment industry and had many opportunities to interact through professional connections as well as their personal lives away from film sets. One notable connection between them was the fact that they both lived in Gstaad, the famous resort town in Switzerland. The area had long been a popular destination for many well-known figures from the worlds of art and cinema. This environment gave them opportunities to get to know each other beyond their professional careers. While acknowledging Peter Sellers' talent, Roger Moore repeatedly stated that he found it difficult to become close to the famous actor. According to what he later recorded in his memoirs and interviews, Moore always viewed Sellers as one of the most complicated personalities he had ever encountered. What left the strongest impression on Roger Moore was not Peter Sellers' acting ability, but rather his personality. The Bond star believed that his colleague frequently changed his behavior depending on the circumstances and made it extremely difficult for others to know the real person behind the many images he projected. In comments published later in life, Roger Moore described Peter Sellers as someone who always seemed to wear many different masks. He believed that Sellers tended to adjust his behavior depending on whom he was interacting with. This made it difficult for people around him to maintain stable and long-lasting relationships. In Roger Moore's view, unpredictability was the very quality that set Peter Sellers apart from most of his colleagues in the entertainment industry. While many actors maintained a consistent persona, both on screen and in real life, Sellers was regarded as someone who constantly created an air of mystery around himself. In addition, Peter Sellers became well known for stories involving his unpredictable temperament. Many people who worked with him described him as an artist whose moods could change rapidly and who could sometimes be difficult to work with. Accounts like these reinforced Roger Moore's perception of his colleague. Roger Moore was not the only person to comment on Peter Sellers' eccentric nature. For many years, the British press published numerous articles discussing the actor's complicated personal life. These stories helped create an image that was both fascinating and difficult to understand around the famous comedy star. One of the things Roger Moore found frustrating was Peter Sellers' tendency to isolate himself. Although he frequently appeared in public and attracted considerable media attention, Sellers was often described as someone who did not easily open up to those around him. As a result, many relationships remained distant. According to Roger Moore, holding conversations with Peter Sellers or building a friendship with him was never easy. He believed the actor deliberately kept a certain distance from other people. Even individuals who had known him for many years sometimes struggled to understand his true thoughts. Another notable detail related to their professional connection emerged when Roger Moore became involved in the project Curse of the Pink Panther. During the production of that film, he found himself taking on a role associated with a character image that Peter Sellers had been linked to for many years. On July 24, 1980, Peter Sellers died of a heart attack at the age of 54. His sudden death shocked the international film industry. Many colleagues and fans expressed sadness at the loss of one of the finest comedy actors of the previous century. After Peter Sellers passed away, Roger Moore continued to mention him in memoirs and interviews. These remarks often carried two distinct tones. On one hand, Moore expressed respect for Sellers' artistic talent. On the other hand, he did not hide his negative views regarding the actor's personality. These stories show that behind the image of the elegant James Bond, Roger Moore also experienced his share of conflicts with famous colleagues. From clashes of personality and differences in work ethic to contrasting approaches to behavior, each individual left a lasting impression on his memory for many years. If you enjoy behind-the-scenes secrets, little-known relationships, and the hidden side of legendary Hollywood stars, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a comment below.